Hi. So, Dark Life. We're going to start chapter 22 today. And let me move so you don't get the glare from that light shining over my shoulder. Um, anyway, Gemma had just had a conversation with the lady that runs her boarding home. Doesn't go well. She's really mad at her for running away because it's done all kinds of bad things for her in terms of the housing list. So, chapter 22. I couldn't move. Straps bit into my arms and legs, holding me down. I lifted my head and saw that I was belted to a hospital bed, shirtless and shoeless. Thrash, I thrashed, making the straps cut into my flesh, but they still held me in place. From out of nowhere, a gas mask appeared, hovering over my face. I twisted away, my neck cramping with effort. Steely fingers gripped my scalp as the mask covered my nose and lips. I choked back my cries, holding my breath. Rolling my eyes upward, I saw a man in a surgical cap pressing down on the mask. Foul gas pierced my lungs. My vision blurred and I jerked away in the dark, drenched in a cold sheet of sweat. Another nightmare. When would I be done with them? Turning on my side, I listened to the house, to the soft hum of the generator and air purifiers. That helped slow my heart. I got out of bed and pressed my forehead to the cold window. Nothing suspicious lurked in the kelp field. Suddenly, a splash one level down broke the silence. A familiar enough noise, but not one that I often heard in the middle of the night. Who would be climbing in or out of the moon pool at this hour? I hurried down the stairs, noting that the wet room lights were off. Worry dug into me. I swung around the center pole of the staircase and landed with a soft slap of bare feet on the lower level. The only light illuminating the wet room was from the boundary lamps surrounding the property, and they were set on dim. Still, I could see Gemma across the room digging through the contents of a locker, probably looking for her dive skin since she was wearing Zoe's too short nightgown again. The mini sub bobbed in the corner of the moon pool, which relieved me. Using the clamp to pluck up a mini sub, swing it over the moon pool, and drop it directly into the water was tricky enough in a bright room. But as far as I could tell, she hadn't scraped up its side or cracked its viewport on the hard edge. "What are you doing?" I asked as I flicked on the lights at the bottom of the stairs. She whirled, looking guilty and bedraggled. "You're running away again," I said, seeing her duffel bag by the moon pool hollowed out my chest. "I was just borrowing your sub. I couldn't think of any other way to get to the trade station. I was going to leave it there." "What would that get you?" "I'll hitch a ride to the mainland or on some wing ship or houseboat or stowaway." "Don't stop at the trade station," I said, wishing I could control the catch in my voice. "You could run into Grimes, go all the way to Paramus, and then leave the sub with at the Seaguard Pier. We'll pick it up there." "You're going to let me take your sub?" she asked, confused. "How can I stop you? I'm not going to shoot you." "You could wake up your parents." "Right, Zoe too. Then all four of us can sit on you until the Maritime Rangers show up." "That doesn't sound fun for any of us." I nudged her duffel bag with my foot. "Did you take any food?" When she shook her head, I scooped up a seagrass basket beside the greenhouse door and tossed it to her. Then I plucked 2 apples from the nearest tree and flipped those to her as well. "I'm really sorry about your brother." She nodded but didn't meet my gaze. She dropped the apples into the basket and murmured, "You're a lot like him. The way you look out for people. Richard did that. Not just for me, but for the boys in his dorm. He'd stand up for them even if it meant getting himself into trouble." She looked up with sudden inspiration. "Come with me." "To the mainland?" "No farther. You don't want to be stuck living topside. Let's buy a boat with the money Richard sent me and sail away. Where? Anywhere. How about the Colorado Islands? Wrap your head around that for a second. In Colorado, they don't really have islands. They have mountains, but this is after the sea levels have risen. The sea is so high, the ocean is so high that just the tips of those mountains are now islands. Ooh, interesting. My ears grew hot at the thought of us together on a boat. I can't. Her eyes drifted to the window behind me. Ty? I braced myself. I didn't know how else to say no when the idea was so appealing. You said the outside lights never turn off all the way. She pointed over my shoulder. All around the homestead, the boundary lamps flicked off one by one. I bolted for the window. The last lamp cut out, and the fields went dark. Gemma pressed in next to me. What's happening? The kelp close to the house was still illuminated by the lights from inside, except for one dark patch I noticed, which was the house's shadow. No, that wasn't possible. The house was the light source, so it wouldn't cast a shadow. Something else was out there, one story up. The shadow grew darker and wider. Whatever it was descending. I pressed my face to the window, trying to see upward, but nothing dropped into view. Too bad I couldn't use sonar through the thick plexiglass. Whatever was one story up now maintained its position. I backed away from the window. Whales didn't hover, and sharks didn't come in that size of big. Ty? Gemma followed my gaze. Then, as she leaned in for a closer look, something enormous and dark plunged past the window. She jerked back with a gasp. My heart kicked into high gear as I grabbed a hold of her hand. What was? She asked as I dragged her through the fruit trees. Outlaws. I yanked her open the greenhouse door and we ran for the stairs, only to skid to a stop in the center of the wet room as the shadow glided by another window. This time close enough to blot out all else. Faster and faster the specter circled, like a shark closing in on its prey. Pulled by the swirling water, the house twisted on its anchor chains, making us stagger to keep balance. Go! I shouted, steering her toward the stairs while I raced for the house speaker and punched the button. Pa, wake up! Ty, what's going on? My father's voice was alert. No doubt he'd been shaken awake when the house started moving. In the background, Ma cried, John, the boundary lamps are out. The specter is circling us, I told them. I think the outlaws just shut off the exterior power, but I don't know how. Pa's response was a curse that would have made a miner blush. Where are you? His voice cut out, along with every noise in the house and every light. Uh-oh, the outlaws are there. And now they've cut off their power. They're swirling around the house, which kind of floats on these chains. And now it's twisting and twisting. You'll have to tune in tomorrow to find out what happens. See ya.